We've reached the fifth poem in our study of Carol Ann Duffy, and the poem is Mrs. Tilscher's Class. The poem is about Carol Ann Duffy's experience moving from primary school to secondary school in the mid-1960s. So before we look at the poem, as a bit of background, let's just have a look at the film, a short film that tells us what life was like in the 60s. Take a look at the pictures on the screen here. They give a feeling of what it was like to be in a school classroom in the 1960s. And there's an activity for you to complete there as well. In Mrs. Tilscher's class. In Mrs. Tilscher's class, you could travel up the Blue Nile with your finger, tracing the route while Mrs. Tilscher chanted the scenery: Tana, Ethiopia, Khartoum, Aswan. That for an hour, then a skittle of milk and the chalky pyramids rubbed into dust. A window opened with a long pole, the laugh of a bell swung by a running child. This was better than home. Enthralling books. The classroom glowed like a sweet shop. Sugar paper, coloured shapes. Brady and Hindley faded like the faint, uneasy smudge of a mistake. Mrs. Tilscher loved you. Some mornings you found she'd left a gold star by your name. The scent of a pencil slowly, carefully shaved. A xylophone's nonsense heard from another form. Over the Easter term, the inky tadpoles changed from commas into exclamation marks. 3 frogs hopped in the playground, freed by a dunce, followed by a line of kids jumping and croaking away from the lunch queue. A rough boy told you how you were born. You kicked him, but stared at your parents, appalled, when you got back home. That feverish July, the air tasted of electricity. A tangible alarm made you always untidy, hot, fractious under the heavy, sexy sky. You asked her how you were born, and Mrs. Tilscher smiled, then turned away. Reports were handed out. You ran through the gates, impatient to be grown, as the sky split open into a thunderstorm. We're now going to watch a short film of the poem being analysed in detail, and you can go back to this at any point you want to help annotate your own copy. You should have plenty of notes now in the poem and an understanding of the central concerns and the techniques. What we need to bear in mind is that in the Scottish text question, you'll be asked to compare this poem with others. So this is a good point just to reflect on connections that might be made between this poem and the previous ones.